Hey everybody, welcome to a new series in Planet Coaster, which I probably shouldn't start because I've got so many running already, but I'm gonna try my best to explain why I'm doing this. And first I just want to give a very quick explanation what I'm doing here, as I'm trying to give the other explanation. Basically, this is a layout for an Intamin Megalite that I'm working on with the 4 meter method. For some reason I decided to try and boot that up again. But it's not really the focus of this video. The real reason why I'm making this video and the real reason why I'm starting a new small series, even if that wasn't my own intention or my own idea, is because I've got an email from Frontier a few days back. And that email, you might already know what it's about. In a few days, or actually tomorrow, from the time that this video is coming out, on July the 10th, a new update and DLC on Planet Coaster is coming out, which is the Vintage Pack. And Frontier basically did something which they haven't done so far, but which I'm actually really glad that they did. They held an embargo and gave a bunch of YouTubers and streamers early access into the update in order to prepare and make videos and do live streams before it comes out, just to figure out some stuff and try to give people a taste and also raise awareness for the fact that the update is coming out. So here you go, I suppose. If you didn't already know, the Vintage Pack is coming out on July the 10th, and it's gonna have a lot of new stuff in it. And this is really something that concerned me after my initial hype of everything that was new that I saw in the pack kinda died down. Because as much as I love the pack, and honestly it might just be my favorite pack so far, there's a lot of things that are really useful for me personally that I've always wanted to see in the game, including more flowers, more building elements, some really Arabic and Moorish architectural elements, but also some really great pieces which I didn't expect earlier, which are the focus of this video, which is support pieces for roller coasters. And because I saw that, or actually I should say because the lady designer told me about those support pieces and was the first one to show them off to me, and I've noticed that some other people who had the early access didn't notice right away that these support pieces were there, because they're not really part of the Vintage Pack, they're not really part of the Vintage theme, if you will, but they're still included in the game for some reason, and it makes me insanely happy because it's partly something that is really power player focused. It's not really for the average player because most people are not going to want to custom support their coasters. It's kind of something for the silverettes of this world, I suppose. At least that's what I was thinking they were going for. But also it shows that they're kind of taking, you know, not just the vintage direction with this pack. They're adding quite a bit for everyone. It's not just all vintage. You've got these other details and little tidbits here and there as well, like the Moorish elements and the new flowers and stuff like that. And that is on top of the bigger changes in the game that are coming as well, like the vending machines and the fact that you now get camera filters and all that kind of stuff. So my concern was really, how do I make a video about this update? And I figured I would do it the only way I could, just launch up the game and try to build stuff and see where it goes, and really try to force myself to use the new elements as much as possible, but also kind of in a unique way to show off their unique purpose. So this first episode is really going to be all about those custom supports. I'm not sure if anybody else is going to do that, and what I am sure of is that many YouTubers like the Lady Designer and Geekism and all of those people are gonna make all kinds of videos where they show the new pieces and everything like that. But I'm not quite sure if anybody is going to give a first view of these support pieces and what you can actually use them for. Not to mention actually test these pieces and see how good they really are, because it's kind of new to this game, and for me it's really interesting because it's something that I've done so much in the past, because I used to play a lot of Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, and in this community doing custom supports for your coasters was pretty much the default way to go about making coasters, because the in-game supports were really quite bad, and really half the creativity was all in the supporting of coasters. And ever since Planet Coaster and the pretty good automated supports that you get in this game, that whole contest has sort of died down, and I'm really curious to see how much these new custom supports in the game can actually bring that sort of culture up again. So this video is all about those custom supports and kind of testing them and seeing how good they really are, seeing how user-friendly they are, and if they're actually usable at all, really. Before that though, I decided to just build a quick test coaster, and that's where things kind of went wrong for me. That's where I have to give my explanation on why this is a series and not just a one-off video. This was supposed to be a one-off video. I was supposed to just whip up a layout in like 1 hour or something. Somewhere along the way I decided that I would use the 4-meter methods to make my coaster, and somewhere along that way I decided that I would do my best to make the perfect layout for an Intamin Megalite, according to my personal tastes at least. And somewhere along that way, the whole process of creating this layout took hours upon hours, and my entire afternoon of the one day that I had to make a video before the embargo deadline. So this is all I have to show: a coaster layout creation and custom supports. That said, this is probably one of my favorite coasters that I've ever made in this game. It is quite smooth, and I actually quite like the layout. It's based on the Intamin Megalite standard layout, so it's not really all my creativity, but it's with some personal flourishes that I kind of prefer. In any case, it's time to get into the custom supports, and this is the real deal and what this video is mostly about. So in the... well, it's the sort of support section of the building section. It is a little bit of a weird thing, because where do you put these supports really? They're not really a building, they're not really scenery either, but this is where they are, at least for the moment. And the packs consist of a number of different support packs that kind of belong together, and they have supports of different widths and different kind of flanges and footers for each one. But I think there's a lot that you can mix and match with these things. You can probably put some different footers on some different supports, and I think it works really well for different coaster sizes and types as well. Some of these supports really kind of seem like B&M supports. Some of them are really thick and large, so you could use them on really big coasters, while some of them are quite small, so they're more fit for the smaller coasters. And in this case, I'm building an Intamin Megalite, so I wanted to follow the look of the Intamin Megalite supports, and two of the biggest game changers I think here are the flanges and the footers. Because of the flanges, you can actually get that detailed look of a realistic support that you couldn't really do before. Some of these have been built by people before, where they would make the flange out of lots of art pieces, which is really inconvenient, annoying, and it lags up your computer a lot. So these flanges are definitely a game saver when it comes to that. And the footers are also quite nice, because it's a similar case. If you wanted to make a footer with just the old in-game pieces, you'd need a lot of pieces and it wouldn't quite look on point. But these ones actually do kind of look like the real Intamin footers. I'm not sure if that was the intention or what these supports were based on, but I think by making a mixture of these different supports, you can make quite realistic Intamin or B&M or Vekoma style supports for a lot of your coasters. So really, when it comes to that detailing, I think this experiment really is quite a success. As you can see, I'm not using the standard support pieces or the standard track connector pieces. I'm just using two smaller beams from the art pieces and then sticking a flange between them, which works more or less as well. That is basically what an Intamin connector looks like. For those who aren't as much into roller coaster supporting, because funnily enough, I'm really just basing all of this on my Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 knowledge from years ago. All the different coaster manufacturers have noticeably different supports and even different connectors. The Intamin connectors have usually round beams that really go into these triangular tracks, whereas the B&M connectors are very square connectors with round flanges that that connect to the supports. So there's really kind of a distinctive look to each one. But I think with these in-game pieces, you can actually quite well recreate that look for each company, even if you have to put some effort into it sometimes, and other times you can really just copy some of your earlier supports, as I'm doing here. Maybe make a few small adjustments, but it's quite easy really to build these things, and it didn't take all that long. And I have to say, this was a lot easier and a lot better than any of the supports that I've done in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, so it's definitely on a whole nother level here. And it's actually been kind of fun to do this entire custom supporting again. Now, I've done it a little bit on grapefruit, but even that was a little bit less realistic. It was just art pieces, and the old art pieces were either a little bit too thin or a little bit too thick to be realistic coaster supports. But with these new support pieces, you can pretty much guarantee that you have one support piece which is the right thickness for the coaster type that you're using. And I also think that the flanges make quite a huge difference, because not only do they look slightly better and add some detail to the supports, it is just more of a realistic thing to add to them. Realistically, supports don't just come in one piece, they come in all these different pieces like one big modular IKEA furniture set, and the flanges are where all of those different beams connect and all of the different connecting pieces all come together to form these full supports. So having all of those bolts to the sides of your supports is really something that adds a bit of realism to the look of the structures. So I'm really glad that those are in the game now, and I think it actually looks quite fantastic. Not to mention that these flanges are just working superbly as track connector pieces. So altogether, I am actually really happy with how this turned out. Now, for the first time ever, I suppose, in a Planet Coaster series, I think I could get a little bit into what the entire philosophy is behind the supporting structures, instead of, as I usually say, the philosophy behind my architecture. So what I'm mostly borrowing this off of is the existing Megalite support structure, which, especially for the lift hill, is quite a signature kind of support style. It has these vertical beams with then one diagonal beam sticking out from it, and on the lift hill supports it has a bunch of horizontal beams and cross beams supporting the whole thing. So essentially you can support the whole lift hill with only a few footers in the ground, and have this whole mess of round iron beams above that. And then there's the two airtime hills that follow the lift hill, which are basically the same as the existing Megalite, only slightly larger and slightly changed. The banking is slightly different because I like that really twisted airtime. But I'm following basically the same supports for that as well. One vertical support coming out from the connector, and then one diagonal support to support that. Don't play drinking games with the word support in this video. So yeah, that's kind of the very standard design of these. And then after that, you might have noticed that after those two big airtime hills, you jump into these curves with, between all of the curves, a little hill going up and down. And personally, these are my favorite parts of the Intamin Megalite. To be fair, I've only been on one Intamin Megalite, which is Kawasemi, but they're all more or less the same, aside from some very small changes. And really my favorite part in these is those three hills where you twist from one side to the other, because you get very twisted airtime. Like, while you are making that hill, while you're making that parabola going from up to down, you're also twisting from the left to the right, or from the right to the left. So it's not only sort of pulling you out of your seat, but it's also pulling you out of your seat and at the same time kind of rotating you. It's a really cool and strange sensation, and honestly, I didn't expect to like it that much before I rode Kawasemi for the first time. But it's actually one of my favorite coasters in the world now that I've ever been on. And I really love that twisted airtime, so I'm bringing that back for this coaster as well. It's the same three curves with three hills in between them. Only with a small difference is that the hills are ever so slightly lower. So the airtime should be a little bit stronger, and it should retain a little bit more of its speed. And just altogether be slightly more intense. And it is really after these three curves that most of the changes in the layout occur. You can see a overbanked curve right there, which isn't in the original layout. In the original layout, that is just a simple flat curve over the ground. After that, it jumps into two bunny hops, which is the same as the original layout, but where in the original layout it goes into another small hill and then into a long drawn out curve after those two bunny hops. In this one, I decided to change that and just go straight into a curve after the bunny hops to the right, and have a quick S-bend with some nice positive G-forces at the end, with another curve finishing it up into the lift hill. So this layout is very similar to the existing Megalite layout. It's only ever so slightly larger, faster, and with less downtime, if you will. Like some of the more calm moments of the layout have been replaced by some other sensations, like the pretty intense G-forces that you'll get in that overbanked curve and then the S-curve at the end, to have a little bit more variation in the layout and also make the layout as a whole slightly more intense. And this is also why it's probably one of my favorite layouts that I've made in Planet Coaster, although that is really just personal preference, because I'm just kind of looking at how this thing would ride were it actually a real coaster in real life. Because I love the Megalites, and I just thought that the few moments of downtime could be a little bit better and a little bit more intense, and that's basically what I've done in this thing. And I've made the airtime slightly more intense. Every hill almost on this thing is at least -1 negative Gs, which means that every hill is ejector airtime and is gonna basically throw you out of your seat pretty violently. So it's a pretty heavy layout for being not so huge a coaster. It's really not that big. It is not quite a hyper coaster or anything like that. I believe I measured it to be about 41 meters tall, which is pretty small, but really for that size, this thing is really intense. Now, this thing is called the Moorish Intamin, as you might have noticed, because I want to try some of the Moorish elements and the Arabian kind of theme in the next video, because I really want to try those architectural elements. I just didn't get to it in this video because things have been taking so long with the 4-meter method and all of that stuff. But I promise I'll get to it next time. I'm gonna try to finish all of the scenery for this thing quite quickly. It isn't going to be as in detail as my usual project, but I still want to make sure that I try to use as much of the new pieces as possible and try to experiment a little bit with them as we go. Now, with that all said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this little bit of a different take and very much a coaster focused video, which I haven't done in a long time. And I'll leave you with a few off-ride shots and an on-ride POV of the coaster. See you next time, guys.